Good evening, and welcome along to the Best of the Guests special. On the way shortly, broadcaster Frank Mitchell is going to be telling us all about the day that he met the Queen. Comedian Tim McGarry is going to be giving his thoughts on Kenneth Branagh's Belfast. I'll be paying a visit to the recently refurbished Grand Opera House, but starting things off, here's what happened when I met J. Osmond. Now, there must be so many highlights you've had throughout your whole career in show business. For me, what I want to talk about is Elvis Presley. You guys were actually quite close to the King, weren't you?
Yes, in fact, the musical covers that too. We were performing in Las Vegas at the International Hotel. It's been changed to the Hilton since then, but this is where Elvis Presley performed, and so he had a what do you call it, a penthouse on top of the hotel, and we were performing with Nancy Sinatra back in '71, I think it was 70 or 71, and he came down to the lighting booth to watch our show. Okay, and so he wanted to meet us, and Nancy says, brothers, everyone called us brothers. Elvis called us brothers. He called us brothers, you know. And he wanted to meet us. And so we go up there and he's like 15 different pinball. He was a pinball nut. He loved pinball games. And then he got to know us and we became like a brother to us. And so we would go down and watch his show. When we stayed there, we watched his show too when he was there. And one of the times when we came back to his dressing room, he opened up his closet and he says, "Now, brothers, I want to show you something." He said, "You got to change your look. You got to macho up your act, you know." And I'll never forget this. And so he shows us all these different jumpsuits. And anyone who has followed the family will know that all of a sudden we changed over to a jumpsuit look, you know, like the white. That was because Elvis said, "This is," and you don't say no to Elvis. This is we can do this, you know. And so he says, "You got to macho up your act," you know. And then he says, "And you also need some karate in your act." So of course, you know, anyone who's followed us, we got into karate, and he sent over Chuck Norris. This is before Chuck became big. This is before he came big, and Chuck became a big friend of ours, and so, you know, it's amazing how it all works. And so but the Elvis was such an integral part of how we maneuvered in our career.
Yeah.
It was really cool to have him that as a mentor.
So we're here in the auditorium. The seats have changed, they're lovely, nice, comfy chairs as well, but one of the things that hasn't changed, we've done a great job in the restoration, is keeping all the original artwork and all the amazing stuff on the ceilings that every time you look up, you notice something different.
It was really important that we didn't want to deviate from Frank Matcham's design, because when you look at the inside of the auditorium, it is perfect. He was an extremely clever designer. Most of us on an Oriental theme, of course, in Belfast. They were all different. Very sadly, he worked on over 100 projects during his lifetime. There are only 21 theatres of his that exist. I personally feel that he's given us his most iconic building. I would say that, but I'm biased. But when you look around and see all of that beautiful decoration, the original paintings in the ceiling, 4 of them, are from 1895. Likewise, the painting above the proscenium arch is from 1895. We have all, of course, those elephants' heads, which are very famous. We have 12 of those. They were all restored, and there are stories of, in the past, early on in the theatre's history, that when people didn't like whoever was on stage, they used to break off the tusks and throw it on stage. That doesn't happen any longer, thankfully. But we had to repair all of that because 125 years, millions of people through the auditorium during that time. That did require a lot of work. All of that beautiful decoration on the front balconies was all painstakingly restored. And the ceiling itself took 4 months. We had to build up scaffolding in the auditorium to allow the restorers, who were specialists obviously, to restore that fabulous ceiling.
I want to come back to the Queen now, because you've met her. You had her in the UTV studios.
That was one of the main highlights of the career. We came in one day, we were told a special guest would be arriving. I was then taken aside by the boss, and I was told that the special guest would be entertained by myself in the studio. And you could tell probably from the presence of the airport type security that the special guest was A-lister. And the Queen arrived, along with one of the ladies from Buckingham Palace, who then took me aside and said, Mr. Mitchell, you will be liaising with Her Majesty the Queen. There are 2 rules. You do not touch Her Majesty, and you do not instruct Her Majesty. And I had no intention of either touching or instructing her, but we were in the studio. And William, who was directing, said to me, make sure she looks into the lens of the camera. So I'm standing looking into the lens, but the Queen comes up to me and she's asking me all about the weather maps, but she's standing with her back to the camera. And William says, in as conversational a way as he can, into my ear, because this has been taken by BBC, by Sky, by numerous news outlets around the world, get her to turn round, can you get her to turn? And I was thinking, I'm not allowed to touch her, I'm not allowed to instruct her. So I said, Your Majesty, for me to get my best view, I always look right into that camera. And she turned round and William says, got her! And that was the shot that was used literally all over the world.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, then 2 days later, we were in Hello magazine, and the president of Chile, who'd just been associated with the rescue of the miners at that time that were lost in Chile, and me. Yeah. A 2-page spread in Hello magazine. And it was that day I thought to myself, yeah, that's a breakthrough, and that's a breakthrough in the career. And then sometime later, my phone started to ring and ring. This was a number of weeks later. Ring and ring and ring when I was driving. Couldn't answer it, and all these missed calls. And I pulled in to get all these messages to say, you're on. Have I got news for you? Where they had shown a shot of the very same spot and used the gag about the Queen is now at weather school and she's auditioning for a new job with ITV. So, I got a good turn out of it.
We discussed the film Belfast. A.N.J.A is very upset about not getting a part in Kenny Branagh's Oscar-nominated film.
Well, funny you should say that, because when I was watching it, I was thinking, do you know what? Forget Jamie Dornan. What about having A.N.J.A and Ma, you and Olivia, playing those parts? Why not?
As we say in the film, I mean, I obviously call the character Pa because he knows there's only one Da in Northern Ireland. And I also say I would be prepared to swap my Ma, the lovely Olivia Nash, for Katrina Balfe. I'm prepared to swap her. So we take the hand out of it slightly. I mean, I enjoyed Belfast and all, but there's a few wee things we talk about the film Belfast. Da's written his own version, West Belfast.
Brilliant, brilliant.
About his experiences of the Troubles.
Me and Elaine, we've been hanging around in what was once sailor town, drinking cheap red wine by the light of the Belfast moon. There's nobody left here that works at the docks. It's all urban renewal and apartment blocks. Summer is fading, winter will be coming soon. The walls in the city have a lot to say about the UVF and the IRA. It's cold by the river, but the sky is full of stars. But these walls say nothing about who I am when I'm singing in the garden at the Rotterdam, doing Brown-Eyed Girl and whiskey in the jar. And I know they're tearing it down street by street. Look out below, there goes the ground beneath your feet. Elaine's mother thinks I'm some kind of crook. She meets me at the door with a dirty look. My welcome round there is starting to wear thin. 'Cause I promised everybody I would knuckle down, but my grades weren't good enough this time round. All my time runs out in the end. knows the ground beneath your feet. Me, I can't wait to be rid of school, but Elaine's got a place at Liverpool. By the time September comes, she'll be gone. And she says she'll text me every day, but that's something she feels she has to say. She'll call me once at Christmas, then move on. Me and Elaine, we've been hanging around in what was once Sailor Town.
So do you know what I'm dying to know? Whatever happened to Elaine?
Oh, Elaine. Well, the hard truth is that it's almost entirely fictional.
Wow, really?
Well, there were, I wrote the song after doing a gig with the Ronnie Greer Blues Band, a very early gig with them in the Rotterdam. And it was late summer, and I remember looking out from the Rotterdam onto the Clarendon dock, and there were loads of kids outside with little Spanish guitars and bottles of wine and everything. And I remember thinking, it's that time of year when they're all going to be going their separate ways. You know, some of them are going to go to university, some of them are going back to repeat A-levels or do A-levels, and some of them are going to go out into the world of work. And that sense of young people at that age about to kind of, you know, they're all going to split. So that was the kind of the sense of the song. And there were other things that were in my head, the Rotterdam especially, the kind of the history around that whole area. And there's a wonderful poet from Sailortown called John Campbell.
Who I think I met once, because Jerry used to read his poems out on the radio all the time.
They really lend themselves to being read aloud. And he had a collection that Blackstaff put out years ago called Saturday Night in York Street. And I'd always loved them. And they were kind of in my head around that whole time as well. So the whole thing kind of, it all became part of where the song came from. But there's no specific Elaine, unfortunately.
Ah. So there we go, Anthony Toner telling us all about his well-known song, Sailor Town. Bit of a punk music special on the way next. I'll be chatting to journalist and broadcaster Stuart Bailie. Terri Hooley will also be popping up, but starting things off, here's Greg Cowan from the Outcasts. And you're massive in places like Japan, aren't you?
Well, the funny thing is about Japan, like, I think there's a place for everybody.
Yeah.
But punk rock was surprisingly big. What really shook us when we first arrived, there's like a sub-genre of Japanese fans who only want to know about Northern Ireland punk. Good Vibrations as a movie went on general release, something it didn't do in a hell of a lot of other countries. To arrive in, we arrived in Osaka airport. I'm not saying there was thousands of screaming fans, but there was about 15 little Japanese girls with Outcasts all over them with presents for us. Wow. I actually thought it was like some sort of a candid camera show. Somebody was setting us up, you know. The adulation is unbelievable. Yeah. It is, I've never seen fans like it. So obsessed. Yeah. And the gigs are like, it was like being 16 again, you know, 17, the amount of energy, oh God, and they're good looking, you know. I mean, they kind of look like we did then, you know, only now. I mean, there was a couple, when you actually played, you'd have 2 or 3 support bands minimum, who would play for maybe 15, 20 minutes. These bands were brilliant, but these kids, I'm talking about in their 17, 18s, they just looked amazing, you know, they were absolutely brilliant. And look, it's one of those things that every band should do. But at our age, to get and do it, I mean, it's almost better now, you know, because you're actually going, this is unbelievable, you know.
And you think the Good Vibrations movie, because it did so well across the world, that kind of helped things as well? Changed
everything. We were touring before that, but all of a sudden you were being asked to do festivals instead of being 23rd on the bill, you know, you were maybe, you know, 3rd on the bill and stuff. It made a massive difference. And you can see once again, Germany, it was very big. You can see the countries where it was well received. Now, you're very lucky that bands like the Undertones and Stiff Little Fingers are still touring, you know. And much as I was very jealous of them when I was a kid, you know, we do a lot of gigs with them and stuff now, you know, and we get thought off in the same breath. The movie made such a difference to everything. I mean, it's also a really good film, which is so rare in any sort of musical films. Then you had to play as well. I mean, unfortunately, last year was going to be one of our biggest years.
Yeah.
The play was coming back to the Lyric and then going down to Dublin for the first time.
Yeah.
And then we were doing a series of gigs in Dublin. Then we were hoping it's going to go maybe West End, maybe even America, because once again, the place, unbelievable.
Brilliant play. So are we going to be able to pick this up then in 2022, do you think?
That is the hope.
Yeah.
But remember, the good thing about when it was coming back this year, it was coming back with the original cast.
Yes.
And that cast, I mean, certainly the guy that plays me, I mean, that's inspired. I mean, if that man deserves some sort of a BAFTA or whatever they get, I mean,
Did he meet you before the play? Did he get any advice from you?
He did, you know. He did. We were very lucky that we were allowed to come into rehearsals. The difference between the movie was that, yes, we were allowed to come. We did a lot of advice on clothing and stuff like that there. But they were, with the play, because they were playing their own instruments, and they were trying to capture more of that live gig feeling. Certainly me and Brian were very influential there. Now, it only goes so far, you know. But the first time I seen the finished play, and the guy who plays me just walks out in this little red coat that my mum had made for me, and started to play, my heart got, you know.
That was your actual coat that he was...
No, it was a copy off, but what I'm saying is that, you know, I can remember my mum making this for me. It was like a wee red fox hunting jacket thing, and I didn't know that's what he was going to wear, you know. Nobody had said to me. I'd been more, I mean, I love the way I'm saying, he asked me to show him some of the bass lines, and then this guy's like a proper musician, you know, I'm showing him how to play it in one finger, and he's going, I'll just do it the way I do it, you know. But I thought that was unbelievable. Yeah. And you're so lucky. I mean, how many people get a film, you know, in a play?
Well, that's it,
You get to see yourself played as a kid.
And what about your relationship with Terri Hooley today? What's that like?
The funny thing is, you know, we, first time round, like, Terri was, more so than any other band, Terri was actually our manager. Now, what that entailed really was just Terri drinking backstage, all our carry out and then stuff, you know. He was like, the beauty of Good Vibes is what you see in the film and stuff's true. Like, it was the most unprofessional thing, but yet without Terri, we'd have just been a collection of bands in Belfast instead of being a certain time in life that Belfast was the musical centre, you know, for that brief period. Terry's Terry. You just love him, you know. I can honestly say that there, you know. He doesn't change much. He gets to be like all of us. We've all got a bit older, but we've all got older together.
Yes, yeah.
And God, you know what? And I love the fact that Terri now gets to be... I mean, Terri didn't have any ambition to be, you know, this celebrity. Like, Terri is now a professional Terri Hooley.
Yeah,
know,
exactly, yes.
For the rest of his life. I mean, he's more recognised now than he'd ever been. I think that's brilliant, you know.
And then it tells stories like, you know, like... that I once kissed Cilla Black.
Did you?
I said, did you not hear that bit?
I've never did. When did you kiss Cilla Black? Because I was always very jealous of people who got to know Cilla and got to meet her, because I always wanted to meet her, never did.
Well, I met her in Belfast when she was playing the Limahl.
Right.
And I had been a big Cilla Black fan from her first record, not anyone who had a heart, but the Love of the Loved. Which I thought was the first punk record I'd ever heard, and then I heard it recently and it was like so tame. It was on. But I thought she spat out the words. And I love Cilla, although I do prefer Dionne Warwick's Anyone Who Had a Heart. So I did. And I got a chance to meet Cilla. And we kissed, and she said, isn't he tall? Because I was tall for my age then. And but that isn't the story. The story is I was in the BBC one day and I was doing an interview. Yeah. And I was talking about punk records and stuff. And then the interviewer said, is it true you once kissed Cilla Black? And I went, yes, I did. And I'm not ashamed of it. And I said, at that time, I was a big Cilla Black fan, and Elvis Presley had Cilla on his jukebox. So there
yes, she was number 15 with You're My World.
But people like the wee stories that I tell. Like when I was 15, I was going out with this girl who lived in a big house up the Belmont Road, and they were very rich, and we were not so rich. I mean, we had a party the day that we could afford lino for our bathroom. You know, it was a big deal in our house. We had tea and buns, you know. And she said to me one day that they'd got an automan. And I was thinking, they've got a robot. And I said, does it do dishes? And does it do a vacuum cleaning? He says, no, you keep linen it. I had never heard what a automan was. You can see that relationship didn't go any further than that.
Well, I've got a photograph appearing on the screen now of a man who we both knew very well, who was always a pleasure to meet, always a pleasure to interview, because it's so many great stories. That is the late, great Henry McCulloch.
Henry, you know, we probably took him for granted when he was with us, and he was always very obliging. We always had bits of chat with him. And again, this was the TV documentary I was doing, So Hard to Beat. And we were invited up to his place in his Ballywindland Road in Ballymoney. He called it Ballywonderland.
Yes, yeah.
And it wasn't really a cottage, but it sort of looked like a cottage. And then Josie kept chickens out the back, and he had a rock and roll life, and you know, the Joe Cocker years and the Paul McCartney years, and we sat for about 3 hours, and he told us all his best stories. And then we all calmed down, and he had a pot-bellied stove around the back of the house, and we all sat out, and the stove was crackling, and he was playing the current Paul McCartney album just after Linda had passed away, and we all just sat in the quiet and reflected on life.
Wow.
And I didn't take a lot of pictures while I was at that era. I was a wee bit shy, but every now and again you go and you'd take a snap. And with great fortune, I got a picture of Henry, and you can just see a man who has seen everything, good and bad.
That's what I love about this photograph. It's the way that I'll always remember Henry in that photograph, because you can see his face just says rock and roll, doesn't it?
He has looked into the abyss, and he has looked out of it again, and somehow, by good fortune and you know, trying my best at the time, I got a picture that stands the test of time, and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah. Live music in the NVTV studios from A.N.J.A. That's a track called Monoxide. On the way shortly, I'll be chatting to George Jones, also 80s music legend Limahl. Keith Duffy from Boyzone will also be here. But starting things off, we're meeting Nicky Byrne from Westlife. Of course, the boys are back out on the road. Dates in Dublin this July and in Belfast this December. And here's what happens when Pauline Carville caught up with Nicky Byrne.
So you've mentioned the big show, the big tour. What have we got to look forward to? I mean, are we going to hear all the hits, including the new ones?
I mean, there's nothing worse than going to see a band or an artist and you don't know any of the songs. So, I mean, I've been there myself when you see people and you're thinking, I want to hear the big hits. So we always do that. We always do all the hits. And luckily, through the years, we've had 14 number ones. So everything from World of Our Own, Flying Without Wings, Uptown Girl, Swear It Again.
Flying Without Wings.
Yes,
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I just was down to do that.
If I Let You Go, You Raise Me Up, the new stuff, Hello My Love, Starlight. You know, we love to put on all the big hits and as I said, let people go home with a big smile on their face. That's the plan.
So we had Keith Duffy from Boyzone on the show recently, and he said he actually prefers to sing Westlife songs. What advice can you give him?
Well, Keith's obviously, you know, been in Boyzone. I actually, back in the day, used to do Boyzone in karaoke, would you believe, before Westlife even existed. So I love to sing an old Boyzone tune myself. But yeah, I mean, the lads are doing well. It's good to see himself and Brian out gigging. And I know, I haven't seen it, obviously, but I know they both share Boyzone and Westlife vocals. But two great Irish bands. I mean, flying the flag, you know, we're proud of everyone.
Yeah, well, it's very exciting times. Myself and Brian McFadden from Westlife, we teamed up together about 5 years ago. We did an autobiographical tour about our experiences of over 25 years in the music business, but that's organically grown now into a group. We've recorded an album called Strings Attached with the Royal Philharmonic, an 84-piece orchestra. Wow. We re-recorded all our favourite Boyzone and Westlife songs. And we're actually in the studio now recording our first studio album. But we're on tour at the moment. We're playing every theatre and city hall from one end of the UK to the next. All the gigs that were postponed pre-pandemic, they're all back in the diary again now. Like I say, we call ourselves Boys Life. And we're on the road at the moment. I've got a couple of days back in Dublin before I'm back in Huddersfield on Thursday.
Well, hopefully, Keith, we'll see you back in Belfast sometime soon. But of course, you're a regular visitor to the city here, and you always get a great reception when you come back, don't you?
Belfast is one of my favourite places in the world. It really is. The way that the city has been built up now, the Quarter Cathedral, or the Cathedral Quarter, should I say. I mean, the bars, the restaurants. It's just, honest to God, I spend a lot of time in Belfast, and I just think the options that you guys have for whatever you want to do up there now, you're spoiled for choice. And yeah, like you say, I'm always very well celebrated and welcomed in Belfast and in the north of Ireland. In fact, our very, very first concert back from the pandemic was a big open show in Derry. And it was a huge success with Joe Gallagher up there. And it was a great night to come back with the full live band, big live open air show. And the reception we got was phenomenal. So it won't be that long before we're back performing in Belfast again.
Do you miss the days on the radio?
I do.
Yeah.
I miss them because I had a wonderful audience and I felt I was a friend of the thousands, which gave you a wonderful feeling. I mean, you used to come off at 5 o'clock at night. You felt very satisfied that you'd helped some people.
Yes. Yeah.
And I did. I helped a lot of people along the way. And I remember getting a wonderful lesson from a great broadcaster. And he turned around to me and I said, what should I do? It was the beginning of my career because I was entertaining sort of thousands of people on the stage, but to transfer that into one microphone and not saying anybody, I says, how do I cope with that? And he says, you just be yourself. And just imagine that you're talking to one person. Yeah. And that person will become the thousands out there because everybody feels that you're talking to them anyway. That's true. The more singularly you can make it, better.
That's true.
And you don't really know how well, you'll know this from your experience on radio, Rob. You have Roger figures and all this and everything else.
It's nonsense.
Nobody knows how well you're doing on radio, but there are things that you do, and I started inventing these things. like the surprise calls and stuff like that. I mean, you couldn't even do that in radio now.
And when people talk about you on the radio, the other thing they always mention Sadie as well.
Yeah. Sadie was a character that it's part of stage. You know, it's part of what we were doing in Club Sound. I decided this day, this wee cleaner would walk in and she started giving me hassles because she had to get her work done. That's where it started.
Wow.
And I became like a ventriloquist, because I think everybody knows now it was me that was doing it. But in those early years, I had people coming up to me and saying, now who is Sadie? It's you, isn't it? I says, how could it be me? Because I pre-recorded the weather and talked into it, so we had two ways. I did Sadie's Cultural Corner where I talked to her as well while she was reading the poem. The art of, you know, technology, what you can do, I used it. But then you would get guys, especially at functions, you've been to them, where maybe you're the speaker or the MC of the night. People are coming, what about Sadie? It is you. Like, no, it might be a bishop or an MLA or an MP, what it was called at the time. Come on, said, but George, come on over here. You can tell me.
You know,
I says, I'm not telling you. I didn't tell them. Why should I tell you? But it was just a beloved period. And then I brought in Sydney, the street singer, who was doing the double and the brew, but he was singing busking as well. And he kept watching out for the cops. And he used to go, Mr. Jones, I've got that great wee number. And Mike Caddo, who was a great film critique, he was on with me every Friday. He helped me write a lot of the little openings and clips. And would take a very well-known song, but put the topic of the week into the song. And Sydney would do this, and you heard the money get into the hat. There's me throwing coins in the sound recording. And then he would spot, gotta go, Mr. Jones, gotta get off, cops are see him doing characters like that. But there were Northern Ireland characters from Northern Ireland humour.
I'm going to take you back to the 1980s because, of course, when you started off, you were part of Kajagoogoo, who were massive in the 1980s, and it must have been great to have so much success at such a young age.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, to be 23 years old and have your first single go to not just #1 in the UK, but #1 around the world. And suddenly you're flying to do the equivalent Top of the Pops in every country, and seeing the world. You know, I'm just a kid from Wigan. I was raised on a council estate, quite a poor family, and I always wanted to work in music. You know, that was my dream, really. To be working in music and then to have that kind of success, just a thrill, an absolute thrill, and it still is, really. It's given me a very interesting journey so far.
And of course, we all remember watching you on Top of the Pops and shows like that way back then. You must have been meeting some of your heroes, some of the greatest performers of all time.
I have, yeah. The ones that stand out for me were EMI Records we were signed to, and of course Nick Rhodes from Duran Duran produced our first album and helped us to get the deal. Princess Diana, met in a lineup at a charity event. It was brief, but it's there for me as a very important moment because of, you know, her life and her legacy. I was invited to Elton John's 40th birthday party at his manager's house, John Reid, and everybody was there. It was amazing. And then the other one was Freddie Mercury, who was also on EMI. So basically, somebody in EMI Records said, you know, do you want to come to the Queen gig at Wembley Stadium? And of course I said yeah, and then there was a party afterwards, and I was taken to meet Freddie in the VIP area, and it was lovely, really. We talked a little. He was smoking. I was a bit shocked. He was quite effeminate, really, off stage. You know, on stage he's so kind of macho and he's doing the punches, and the crowd are kind of macho. And there he was with his legs crossed, holding the cigarette a little bit like that. And he looks up at me and he goes, darling. It was such a contrast. It was crazy. And again, it's such a lovely memory. You might be the first person I've shared that.
sits on the cornerstone. His hair turning yellow, all the pigment's gone. He takes the last draw of that old wood vine. Thank God it's nearly opening time. Old man Joker, he sits on the same old stone. The Reverend passed by and goes walking on and said, "You're drunk again, Joker, at this time." "Me too," says Joker, "and it's opening time." The central bar stone where legends sit, shone by axes and every one of it. The lost souls thrown, they're all drunk for their sins. And even that old stone, it's halfway in. There's George the Brat, on the stone he sat. An old black suit, but never a hat. Brill cream hair, slicked back fine. And he odds, my friend, is it opening time? There's Joe Darian, he's sitting on the stone. Threw his telly out the window 'cause there's nothing on. A little bit posh and a well-versed man. Is it opening time? My good man. The central bar stone where legends sit, shone by axes and every one of it. The lost souls thrown, they're all drunk for their sins. Leaving that old stone, it's halfway in. Although I've named but 4 good men, there's been so many more. All trauma suffered, young and old. They took their turn on the same old stone. They took their turn on the same old stone. They took their turn on the cornerstone.
That's the title track from Conal Montgomery's latest album. That's called The Cornerstone. Now, still to come, I'll be catching up with an EastEnders legend. Top magician Joel M is also going to be with us. But starting things off, a lady who's always welcome on the TV show. Here is Jodie Kidd. So what about you these days? Are you still racing driving then?
I am. So I'm now an influencer, a YouTube influencer. And so I've got a YouTube channel, car YouTube channel called Kid in the Sweet Shop that's going really, really well. We only started it just under a year ago, so it's fantastic. I'm off next week to talk with Nigel Mansell, who's selling his F1 cars, and he's selling his Ferrari, and I'm going and interviewing them and doing the whole history behind the cars. So it's kind of, I'm not reviewing it, I'm meeting people behind iconic cars, designers, people that have amazing collections. So it's something different, something unique, and it's a lot of fun, keeping me out of trouble.
Well, it must be great to meet somebody like Nigel Mansell, who must be one of your heroes.
One of my heroes, I mean, honestly. And the Ferrari that we're talking about is the particular, there's a very famous, one of the most famous F1 images. Anyone that's in or knows about F1, and that's where he picked up Ayrton Senna, and Ayrton Senna sat in the car as he drove around. Anyway, so we're going to go and talk about that car. So yes, I'm really excited about that.
So have you ever had any really scary moments on the racetrack?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the point, is if you want to be competitive, you have to be on the edge, and pushing that envelope of the car and the track is, you're either that split second quicker than everyone else, or you're that split second into a tire wall. So yes, it's really pushing everything to the limit and to the edge. And I've had quite a few gone over that limit, and had quite a few scary kind of crashes. But on a racetrack, they're very, very good. You have a lot of runoff, have harnesses. The cars are really safe nowadays. You've got lots of marshals. It's a much safer kind of environment. Thank goodness, touch wood. But it's a lot of fun.
Brilliant. Now, I've always wondered, what was the very first car that you ever owned?
I had a little Volkswagen Polo. And then I tell you, the first proper one I did, this is rather embarrassing. This is where I'm going to probably lose a load of subscribers on Kid in a Sweet Shop. But it was years ago, and Rover was sponsoring London Fashion Week. And so they asked a couple of the girls to have a car for 6 months, and I was one of them. So I had a Rover 75, which I'd have to say was not doing my street cred a lot.
And what are you driving at the moment then?
I've got an Audi RS6 that, of course, I've got all completely ridiculously souped up, and it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of horsepower. So yes, I've got that, but I've got a hybrid coming, because that's the way forward, and that's where we need to be heading in. And the direction we need to be heading in. So I've got a hybrid coming next.
Best takeaway in Northern Ireland. Here we go. And the winners are Manny's.
18 years of dedication at Manny's Fish and Chip Shop has started to pay off, with owners Laura and Jane winning several awards. Even before the pandemic, Manny's have prided themselves on supporting their community.
Manny's, everybody!
For me tonight, it's a family affair. I've been in business with my sister for the last 18 years. It hasn't been easy, but it hasn't been too hard either. So we live next door to each other, we're best friends. to be able to be coming here and getting these awards is absolutely incredible. I think to be able to be still in business in these times is absolutely incredible. And thank you so much for voting us for the best takeaway in the north of Ireland. We are so happy that we were able to serve you in the pandemic. Thank you.
So what exactly does this award mean to you then?
Well, it means an awful lot to us. I think nobody has been untouched by the pandemic in the last 18 months. But further back than that, we had taken over Manny's on the Antrim Road in maybe 18 years ago. So we were through in at the deep end. We didn't know too much about it, but it's either you sink or you swim. So 18 years later, we have 3 fish and chip shops. We're newly now joined forces with Pizza Guys. We have a Pizza Guys also that we only opened during the pandemic. So for us, it's all about family. Our staff have been absolutely brilliant. We have staff working with us for the last 18 years, and even more so, our staff probably are the face of our business. We're so thankful to have them, and just so lucky to be in a position that we actually can employ people and that they give so much back to us. And we're in a great position that we have a good takeaway, and now we've been named number 1, and you just can't beat that.
Okay, I see a deck of cards on the table there. Shall we do a trick then?
Yeah, why not? I'd be ashamed to have a magician in and not do one trick, you know, so we'll give it a go. I mean, the thing is people are so often, they see me online, people do wonder, well, can you do it in real life? So we're about to find out. Okay. I know you saw me do this maybe at an event last week in person, so it's hopefully not too much of a shock. But with freezing cold hands in the middle of winter in Northern Ireland, let's see if I can make the sleight of hand work, shall we? We'll see if do you like that?
That's impressive.
Practice that just for you. Just for you. Can I grab the table closer to me? Is that okay?
Yes,
we'll do this. Now, here's what we'll do. Before we start this, I'm going to have you actually look, and I suppose I'll show the camera here as well, that this is what we would call in the business a normal deck of cards. I don't know what a non-normal deck looks like, but just for the sake of the people watching, we got 52 cards, and you can see each card is different. Your job is to pick one, and it doesn't matter if I see the card.
Okay.
So we'll do it kind of socially distanced, is the way I like to say. I'll deal the cards down like this. If you tell me to stop, in fact, they might fall off the box. So we'll do it like this. Tell me to stop wherever you like.
Stop.
You're right here. Are you sure?
Right there. That's the one.
See this? Ooh. It's a bad choice of card.
Really?
Do you know what? I'll give you more choice. Out of the pile left.
Yes.
It's not really. I don't know what that would even mean. If you reach and actually just pick one out for yourself, anyone at all. That's
that one.
Perfect one. I can see the card. It's okay. You can show me which one have we got. Perfect. The reason I didn't want you picking that last one is I wanted a lot of room to write on the card, like it would have been King of Diamonds. Bad card. So if you take this, if you sign it on the face. Yeah. Not your face. The face of the card though. If you want, knock yourself out. Sign that, that's perfect. And if you blow on it and then stick your bank details on it as well. You know what, you'd be surprised, some people go for it, you get them late enough in the day. I will take this and I'll take the pen off you too, sir. Thank you. So we now know that there's only one card on planet Earth that looks exactly like this. And who knows, I might be able to sell it on eBay. That would be good. I'll do this slowly. I'll take this, I'll fold it in half. This is damaging cards, and my inner child who used to get a deck of cards for Christmas is crying at this, but here we go. We'll pop this inside the box. Can you see it going inside?
How many decks do you go through?
More than smokers do cigarettes. It's pretty bad. Pop that in your pocket for a little minute. Hold on to your card. No, I finally managed to get a sponsorship for cards, so I don't have to pay fortunes for them. But I mean, I've been through so many packs of cards. It's probably terrible for the environment. Actually, I do recycle them. Go ahead and say stop for me again, wherever you like.
Stop.
Right here. Do you want these to fall?
Yeah, let that one fall. Yeah.
This time, I'll sign a card. We'll go Jack of Clubs. This is actually a bad one, but we'll just go for it. Mine's not as important. We'll sign it. Just like this. And then we're going to get a good look into the camera so you can see this. Perfect. We'll give you a good look at this. You can see the signature. You have the box inside your pocket.
I do, yes.
I'm going to place this. And do you know what? I'll fold this one too as well. So we have it in half, into quarters. Let's see if we can get this to work. So I'm going to pop this. Do you know what? Let's try this. Put this inside your hand and squeeze tight on it. Tight, 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 tight. This might not work.
Okay.
We'll try my best. Really squeeze it. Squeeze my card. I want you to imagine in your head that the ink starts to change on the card and starts to look more like yours. Okay. And inside the box, that card starts to look a little bit more like mine. Okay. Okay, you can stop. I like the way you shake it as well without me even asking, just the drama. I'll not touch anything. Okay. Have a look at the card inside your hand.
Look at that.
What a surprise. I'll pretend I've never seen that before and be amazed myself. Oh my goodness, how did that happen?
I am impressed.
Have a look in your pocket.
I am impressed.
I'm glad you are, because otherwise I wouldn't have done my job. And have we got...
Look at that.
Look at that.
Look at that. Now that is impressive.
You like that one?
That is impressive.
That one's not in the book,
one.
sadly. You gotta come ask me for that one in person.
If I could do that, I'd be impressing people at Christmas parties all around the place.
I believe you're doing that already. It's all good. Just wear that jacket. You'll be top of the town.
Well, Pam, since I have you on the show today, I got to tell you as well, we've missed you so much on TV over the past 10 years. We really have. And being a massive soap fan, the massive EastEnders fan, I got to say, one of the most heartbreaking scenes on television that I've ever seen was Pat Butcher's death. Was that difficult to do?
Well, it was difficult because of the context. In other words, I was leaving.
Yeah.
And I think that made it doubly, although I was the one who I think kept my head straight most of the time and didn't get involved. I couldn't at any time we were filming all that. I couldn't come out of character and be me, because then I would have had it. But, you know, whilst ever I kept my eye on the ball, I was fine. Yes, it was a very strange thing to have to do.
And do you miss Pat?
I've put her away now. I've put her in the wardrobe like an old coat, and I'm not sure that I can even fit in her anymore. I mean, I'm not sure that I haven't sort of got over her now. It took a while. It was quite a period of mourning.
And when I look back at all the great scenes that you had over the years, I mean, it must have been totally amazing to work with people like the late great Barbara Windsor.
Yes, indeed, I do miss Babs like mad. Yes, I miss her. I miss everybody at EastEnders, actually. It's obviously, it was a large part of my life.
And of course, Mike Reid as well, because Pat and Frank were just the ultimate soap couple, weren't they?
Yes. Yes, I can remember our executive producer at the time said, it's the only true love story in EastEnders, Pat and Frank.
Staring in your eyes to find a safe place to go. Cause every road's been that nobody really knows. Such a perfect smile, a perfect girl. I wanted to give you the world, but I fell short and lost you before I could. So take me back, love, I need you to understand. When love and need truth and lies, they come hand in hand. Nothing lasts forever, but maybe this will. It's got to be forever, so I know that love is real. Take me back, love, I need you to understand. I'm just another broken man. Just another broken man. I can trace my love from the bottom of your lips down to the deepest part where my heart sits. I'm afraid to cry and I don't know why. I'm falling for regret. It's time I told you I've loved you all my life. So take me back, love, I need you to understand. When love and need truth and lies, they come hand in hand. Nothing lasts forever, but maybe this will. It's got to be forever, so I know that love is real. Take me back, love, I need you to understand. I'm just another broken man. I'm just another broken man. So take me back, love, I need you to understand. When love and need truth and lies, they come hand in hand. Nothing lasts forever, but maybe this will. It's got to be forever, so I know that love is it's real. Take me back, love, and get you to understand. I'm just another broken man. I'm just another broken man.
That's Conor Maley with his current single, that's called A Broken Man's. That's nearly all we have time for on the Best Of compilation this week. A couple of guests still to come, but it's always good when the unexpected happens on the show. Here's what happens when I caught up with quiz champion A.N.J.A, and she just decided to recite some Shakespeare to us. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Well, ever since I was a child, I like reading books, and I like knowing things and getting answers to my questions. And whenever I asked a question and couldn't make sense of the answer, I was like, well, obviously the grown-ups are no use. I'm going to have to go off and learn this on my own. So I used to go off and learn a load of stuff on my own. And I just kind of furnished my brain doing that, just learning. I like to learn things like chunks of Shakespeare and lists of kings and queens and other, tedious things that no normal child is interested in.
So what's your favourite Shakespeare then?
Well, I know the to be or not to be speech, which goes, to be or not to be, that is the question whether it is noble in the mind to suffer the sins narrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing them to die, sleep no more, and by sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks of flesh's edges. The contemplation of battle to be wished, to die to sleep, just to dream. Aye, there's the rub, for in that sleep to death what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal calm must give us pause. There's the respect for next calamity of sorrow and life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressed strong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of dispraised love, the laws delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy take, when he himself mighty squire to make with a bare bodkin, who would fathers bear to grip the sweat under a weary laugh, but that the threat of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. Thus conscious does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution, its sickly door with a pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pith and moment with disregard their current sterner eye, and lose the name of action. Soft you now, the fair Ophelia, nymph and their orisons be all my sins remembered. At the end of it, his girlfriend comes in and stops him.
That is impressive!
I enjoyed doing that.
So it's working all the different muscles, but one of the most important muscles we mustn't forget is a smile muscle. Because if you work that one, you're going to feel good forever. Now, I've been looking at the way you're sitting.
Yes.
And I've been thinking, we need to change that posture. So here's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
From now on, and everybody listening at home, make sure the soles of the feet are on the floor. That's the first thing. Now, sit up straight to the edge of the seat. Okay, imagine that there's an orange between your shoulder blades. Okay. I want you to gently squeeze out the juice of that orange, gently. Oh, see, automatically? Right? Oh. Now, hold that position. You follow the quick movements that you should all do, right? Because we don't use the muscles at the back very often, and it's really important that we do that. So take your hands up above your head and form a Y. So both hands are up, palms facing me, and just form a Y.
Yeah.
So that's Y. Remember Y. Then you come down to the shape of a W. So you bring your elbows down, force your elbows behind you, and think of that being a W. You can see the shape of a W, yes?
Yeah.
Hold that position. Right, now, you drop from that position, you drop your hands down. So now your hands are facing the ceiling, right? Your thumbs are pushing behind you, right? So that gives you an L. And I'm going to just quickly show you. You're doing it. I'm sure you're doing it.
Yeah.
That gives you, so you got L. Okay, and then the final one, bring both hands up and stretch your arms out. That gives you straight out in line with your shoulders. That gives you a T. Think of a T. So if you start from me, you go Y, W, L, T. Those letters stand for you will live taller. What have I done? I got you to stand up straight. We're exercising the muscles at the back. So no longer you're rounding your shoulders. You're now exercising those muscles and standing up straight. That's so important for every single person who's getting older, and we all will eventually, that you do those exercises. And if you want more of those exercises, you've got to check out the Mr. Motivator Club.
can't see the eye of the storm. Falling fast, it won't take long. Down in the snake pit, the lights have gone out. No one to warn you, there's no way out. Well, how you ever gonna get out? How you ever gonna get out? You're on the highway to the lost and found. Shifting gears to another town. Making plans and no one's around. You're on the highway to the lost and found. Well, how you ever gonna get turned around? Standing here but the rain don't sound. You're on the highway to the lost and found. You're on the highway to the lost and found, yeah. I know that it sounds good to me. Another place and there ain't no fee. It's just another place with nothing to say. Sign in the window said it's taking a stay. One more town and one more day. One more town and one more day. You're on the highway to the lost and found. Shifting gears to another town. Yeah. Making plans and no one's around. You're on the highway to the lost and found. How you ever gonna get turned around? Standing here but there ain't no sound. You're on the highway to the lost and found. You're on the highway to the lost and found. Woo! On the highway, I'm on my way. On the highway,